Hello and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being followed in the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined this week by Jennifer Fumiko-Cahill, the Arts and Features Editor of the North Coast Journal. Hey, Jennifer.
How you doing?
Pretty good. I noticed that this week Thad is not available, so it's just me and you this week.
That's right. Thad is with family for the Thanksgiving holiday, and we are just going to have to shuffle forward without him. But hi, Thad.
Hey, Thad and family. Well, on this Harvest Festivus Eve, let's dive right in and talk about what is on the cover this week.
This week, the cover, as it has been for many a Thanksgiving, is the North Coast Journal's. Look at me, I have an actual paper and I'm in my office. North Coast Journal's gift guide, our annual gift guide, which is actually not an editorial product. It's something that our sales and marketing folks put together and our production people assemble. And then we sort of come in at the end and just proofread. We don't make any of the choices, or it's all sort of, it's a marketing product, but it's fun. And it's kind of like the Sears catalog, except our local edition. And it is, oh, wow, did I date myself by saying the Sears catalog?
Probably.
I'm sorry. It's like the Amazons or but inside the journal is our gift guide. And first, before we even get into kind of talking about what's new in there, I want to point out that the horse and carriage, this is a covered bridge in Bayside was the inspiration for this image, but also the horse and carriage were inspired by, you can see on the inside of the paper, under where the table of contents is, there's a little photo inset of a carriage that one of our artists here in the production department, Dave Brown, saw just out and about on his business around town in Eureka. Shiny 4D Clydesdales is the name of this company, and they have draft horses, those horses with the big bucket hooves, and they have a vintage carriage that he photographed, and he asked, can I take pictures of this? And from that picture, he put together this lovely illustration of a horse and carriage going over the covered bridge with a bunch of presents. It's very Humboldty. It's very nice.
In a land with no snow, maybe that's how Santa does actually get around on Christmas Eve.
Right? We're not waiting for snow. We're not waiting.
Well, right on. Anything else you want to share with us about the guide? Tell us for folks that aren't super familiar with it.
Yeah, if you flip through, it's a nice little arrangement. Things are it's like a pleasant browsing experience to sort of get your mind going and get you in present buying mode. I will point out that there are, if people are shopping for me, there are in fact some taco Christmas ornaments. You can't beat that. Taco Christmas ornaments, a lot of really beautiful locally made stuff, everything from ceramics to sort of woven things and, art pieces, photographs, stuff from local bookstores. It kind of is a nice reminder, honestly, of all of the nice local shops we have. We have really interesting local makers, producers, and sellers. And I don't know, I kind of, it's easy to get in that mode where you're like, oh, I'll just go online and do it all. And, as it says in the introduction, like help Jeff Bezos build that next rocket. But in fact, you could do pretty well just shopping locally and sort of keeping money in Humboldt County and also finding really cool and unique stuff that isn't like what you're going to find online, isn't what you're going to find elsewhere. It's not the same thing that's being sold all over the country. It's special. And speaking of special, this year a little bit different. We typically have, some cannabis products and things and alcohol and whatnot that are sort of more adult content in the back of our little catalog here. Just, because I know I'm going to get letters from people who are like, but what about the children?
Oh,
Starting
gosh.
from about page 28 on, maybe hold those back for yourself, just away from innocent eyes. There might be some more adult products in there that I won't make Dave talk about.
Well, thank you for leaving some to the imagination. I skimmed through it. I think I know what you mean, and I'm pretty sure I know what all that stuff means and what it's for, but maybe we ought to talk offline just to make sure.
Yeah, I think maybe that's something you need to get in touch with your parents about. Have the talk, the whole thing. But yeah, anyway, so the gift guide is in there. It's always a giant, colossal haul to get it done and get it out to everybody by Thanksgiving. And I'm happy to say that so many of the, local retailers are going to be closed on Thanksgiving. So, if you feel like you need to shop, don't go out and, leave your family and stay home, stay with your family and just like browse. Analog browsing. It's nice.
Old school. The whole Sears catalog throwback thing that you mentioned, where the wish list comes in from flipping pages.
Yeah, back when I was a kid.
Yeah, when we walked uphill both ways to school in the rain.
Mm-hmm. The internet was called paper.
Well, cool. Thank you for sharing some deets about the holiday guide that you guys have there this week. I have already started to peruse, but maybe I'll make it to the latter pages and see if there's other things to tickle your fancy.
Don't tell your mom I sent that to you.
Okay, deal.
We also have a really great news story from Kim Ware in the regular part of the journal. It is the headline you're looking for when you're browsing through online is Preserving a Way of Life. And what she's written about this week is a proposed piece of legislation from North Coast Congressman Jared Huffman. And that legislation would return some land that is currently managed by, is it the U.S. Forest Service that manages it right now?
I think so,
to
yes.
the Karuk people. And so that place is right where the Klamath and Salmon rivers come together. And there's an area of about 1,200 acres that is sacred for the Karuk people. And it is the site of the jump dance and the salmon ceremony, among other things, the Fix the World ceremony. It is in some ways the way that Tuluwat is for the Wiyot people. It's one of those places that is sacred in terms of, spiritual practice and in terms of culture and history and all those things. And it is a gorgeous range. The photo that's in there that is courtesy of the Karuk tribe is just a breathtaking scene of mountain and river and trees. And it's absolutely gorgeous. And an interesting thing that the Karuk tribe's executive director, Joshua Saxon, said about it was that, I think the quote is, he says, our philosophy is not necessarily that we own the land. We owe responsibility to this land and responsibility to restore this place. And so the idea of ownership is more really about stewardship and about caretaking. And it's a really lovely step in the right direction after so many generations of, attempted genocide and oppression and really government sanctioned attacks and attempts to strip the Karuk people and other California Native people of their culture, their language, their spiritual practices, their food sovereignty, all those things. This return of land is really a step in a direction of healing in that sense. He also said about it, which is also interesting, it's not complex, it's very simple, it's very straightforward. It's only about 1,000 acres. We see this as a non-controversial and necessary to right a historical wrong. And so we'll see how this legislation does, if it's able to go forward. But it's really something to see. It feels like we are in a moment of real possibility and change in terms of the direction of at least California state interaction and dealing with tribal people. And yeah, it's great to see.
Thank you. I think there's one element too that was really neat is that it's taken 7 years of conversations to get to this point, and so it really is a major accomplishment. Kim did a great job of speaking with a bunch of the people at the Karuk tribe about their perspectives and the significance of it. It's really about sort of honor and dignity and respect, and so yeah, 95% of this land is federally owned and managed, but some small portion of it that is private and on right-of-ways and such will remain private. And the perspective from some of these tribal spokespeople in the article, I think, was really neat, that they're basically saying like, yeah, we just want to be able to manage it. We want to be able to say, hey, we have a ceremony on the calendar. We're going to publicize it. We're going to maybe have less river, rafting trips come right through one of our ceremonies, that kind of thing. I think that's what people need to hear, that like, oh, it's about respect, and it's about progress.
Yeah. And honestly, like, do you really want your rafting party to come sailing through a sacred dance? That doesn't feel good. Nobody wants to do that. So I think it's mutually beneficial, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it does going forward.
Right on. Well, we look forward to hearing the update from you and the crew at the North Coast Journal as this works its way through the process. Let's transition now. What else are you covering this week in the Journal?
Well, Wendy Chan, my girl Wendy Chan, is back, and she has brought mushrooms. This week she's writing about matsutake mushrooms. Matsutake. These are, I know everybody gets very excited about the chanterelles and all the other wild mushrooms because people are crazy mushroom hunters here in Humboldt County. And occasionally people get grumpy with us. They're like, do not share where I'm finding my mushrooms. And I see people on Facebook who are like, look at these amazing mushrooms. And people are like, where are you? None of your business. Right? Plus, mushroom hunting is like a weird thing, right? If someone invites you to go mushroom hunting and it's like, come with me into a secret place in the woods where I'll have a knife.
Don't tell anybody, right? Don't tell anybody. Right?
And mushrooms are expensive. They're only around, for a short time. And we have a ton of them up here. Our conditions are right for all of this. But one of the mushrooms that's in there is like gold bars in Japan, in other parts of Asia too. But when I was living in Japan, these mushrooms, matsutake, they have a very particular scent. They're sometimes called a pine mushroom. But it's a very earthy, lovely, distinctive aroma. And they can go upwards of $1,000 a pound.
Whoa.
And I know that sounds like one of those crazy $100 Japanese melon things. And yes, it kind of is. I have at one point, when I saw them in the supermarket, very excitedly paid $25 for 2 tiny mushrooms that were on sale. And I was so thrilled to get them at like 50% off. But because they're so fancy and expensive and the flavor is so intense, what we do for most Japanese cuisine that incorporates the matsutake is we slice it like razor thin and distribute it through rice or whatever. And, we just sort of have one slice of it in a savory custard and just sort of everyone oohs and ahs over it. But here, they are coming out of our ears. And Wendy Chan's recipe calls for a shameless 2/3 of a pound of mushrooms, and it's fantastic. I have never felt so decadent as when I tried this soup at her house. She makes this incredible, because they're just priced like regular mushrooms here. Here it's like a crimini, it's like a chanterelle, and you can just go crazy. And she knew some people who were picking them, getting them, and she got a bunch. and she bought this ton. She describes at one point last year, maybe it was a couple years ago, going with a girlfriend to buy some from a guy in Oric and waiting around like they were going to do a drug deal, waiting around at a gas station parking lot for this man to pull up so that they could buy something out of his trunk.
Nice.
It was so shady. And because they're so cheap and so plentiful here, and they really do, they're not exactly the same as the Japanese variety, but it's like suddenly, the streets are paved with golden mushrooms. So she's made this incredible broth with a whole chicken broken down and cooked down, and with Chinese red dates. And there's a sort of an earthy sweetness that comes out of it. And the broth is a clear broth, but it's so fragrant, so strong, so rich. It is, there are all kinds of things that you can look up about the possible, the antioxidants and all the health benefits of the mushrooms, of goji berries, which are also in there, of lots of ingredients. But when you taste it, you feel like, I'm pretty sure this is making me a better person.
Right on.
Pretty sure this has healed me of all ailments. And I think my soul is being repaired. It's fantastic. And I strongly recommend, while we have them and while we are lucky to live someplace where the stuff is growing on or near trees, you should go to town and just gorge on matsutake while we can.
So here's a rando question. What stores possibly, or what places can we even get these if we're not part of a network?
Or a syndicate of some kind. I have bought them at the North Coast Co-op. I believe I have other people who've told me that they've bought them at farmers markets, but any place that has a nice variety of mushrooms will have it. I would check Eureka Natural Foods, your co-ops, etc. But hilariously, Wendy's mushroom connection. She asked me if I wanted any, and I was like, yes, I want some, because I have some Japanese friends locally who are eager to get them. And so I waited all day to get a call from my mushroom dealer. And then when she called me, I had to go pick it up, and then I had to go divide it so that I could distribute it to all these other women that I know. And my son looked at me and he was like, it's like you're part of a cartel.
Right.
It's what it felt like.
You were operating with the intent to distribute.
And hey, the price, at least, overseas, the price is about right for that. So yeah, but it's a great recipe and you should definitely check it out.
So you said like rich and earthy, like our regular, not regular, but some of our other favorite local wild mushrooms.
Yeah, I think mushrooms have, that range of flavor in the way that cheese has that range of flavor. And some of them have a deeper scent. There are those that taste more kind of light, like your oyster mushrooms, as opposed to, say, a lobster mushroom, which those are just wild. Those are crazy. But yeah, get to know some mushroom hunters. It's pretty fun.
So not to belabor this at all, but I was hiking up in like near Oric, like Redwood National Park, and there was a small group of people that were showing each other the mushrooms that they found. And I'm usually kind of open with I say hi to everybody and just reflexively. And as I walked by and I just said hi, I saw them cover up what they had. They actually were like covering up. And I heard them. I knew what they were talking about, but I was like, holy, this is really a thing. Like, they do not want people to know what they found and where they found it.
I saved a recording of a very angry woman who once called up in my office and left me a profanity-laden message about how we need to stop telling people about local things because we're ruining it for everyone.
Oh, no.
And stop telling people where to find agates, stop telling people where to find mushrooms. And yeah, she was livid. For the record, the secret we had revealed that week was literally Agate Beach.
Oh,
yeah.
Like you couldn't find Agate Beach on a map.
People are very defensive about their secret spots here in Humboldt.
Yeah. Which I think makes sense, but at the same time, like share the love.
Which takes me to another topic that's covered in the paper this week. if you have friends who have crab pots, this is another very special time of year. If you are dropping pots yourself, I don't need to tell you. Apparently, according to our Kenny Priest, our fishing columnist, the crab catch is really good for recreational crabbing right now.
Awesome.
He said that usually it's a question of we have fewer crab and so there's more meat in them, or we have more and there's less meat in them. But it seems like they're plentiful and nice and hefty, and
Awesome.
barring any issues with, we haven't had the pesky domoic acid holding us back, but barring issues with price negotiation, he's feeling optimistic about the December 1st commercial opener. And I see lots of people out there, lots of, folks who are getting recreational crab are pulling in just full pots, catching limits, and really enjoying the crab and lording it over the rest of us who don't have access. It's the only time I wish I was sporty and outdoorsy. But soon, I'm really hopeful that, commercial crab will be able to open soon, and I hope they get a good price. It's an industry that's been hit extremely hard, and it's always a tough job. And so also, if you have any complaints about the price of crab being too high, I ask that you please print them out, mail them to me, and let me use them to crack crab on top of. I don't want to hear it. It's a very difficult thing to catch and make a living off of. We have to pay for it.
And it's a really high demand, valuable commodity that if we didn't pay a high price here, it would all get exported to other places. Like I say exported, but shipped out to restaurant-y jurisdictions like Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, coastal here, the demand. So yeah, we pay full price so that we can keep them here and actually get a taste.
And there's just nothing like it. I mean, if you've eaten crab in other parts of the world and other parts of the country, there's no comparison. It's probably the thing I'm most jingoistic about for Humboldt, the most evangelical about. There is no substitute for Dungeness crab.
And what's your poison? Like what's your method of delivery of this fix?
I'm an all butter girl.
Yeah.
Occasionally we'll do a sushi night at home where we do a big pot of sushi rice, rice with just the vinegar mixed in, and then you have your nori and you just make temaki, the hand rolls. And we do sushi the way that a lot of families do taco night.
Nice.
So, and you just eat crab that way, or, just with butter. Nice. I'm a big fan of the crab sandwiches that are at local small markets.
Yeah. So we have visitors that come periodically to our community, and when during season, we take them to places to experience crab cakes.
Oh yeah.
My family has a crab cake recipe that I thought was a family recipe, and then one day I looked up Epicurious, which is the Bon Appetit magazine website, and found that's my mom's/grandmom's recipe. And it's like, oh, great. So like we copied it and we just we call it our own, but it's obviously free and available to anyone to find online. I don't know what your take is on crab cakes, but that recipe is money.
I support your family's fraud. If you go back into our archives, we have a lot of really great crab recipes too. One of them by Wendy, which is a Vietnamese French butter recipe, which is incredible. And I did it at home and it was just phenomenal. Also really wonderful is there's a story from Linda Stansberry about crab for Christmas. Mm-hmm. And she is having none of the extra bells and whistles. It is all about the crab, the butter, some mayo, and some sourdough. And that's it. She's a Humboldt girl born and raised, so it's not really surprising.
Pretty amazing. Well, so I would say like I'm a lemon person. I'll take seafood with a little squirt of lemon, the purest. And I think that's because I'm from the East Coast and originally Boston area. And so when I was introduced to lobster, everybody was like, "No, you're gonna need butter." As a kid, I ate it like popcorn once or like potato chips or whatever, where you just eat way more than you should. And the butter got me, the butter rocked me. And so ever since, I'm a lemon person for the most part. So that's a little tidbit for people that think some seafood can be too rich. Just add a tiny bit of lemon. It's not as rich anymore. It's actually fresh and light if you don't drown it in some sauce.
Well, it's just really lovely that we're going to be able to enjoy this bounty really soon. It's something that, we wait all year for. And it's nice to see people being able to bring back the crab for Christmas thing too. It's a nice, humble tradition.
Yeah. And shout out to all those people out there who are, number one, commercial fishermen, making it happen for the whole West Coast, but also to the local people who are putting down their own pots and sharing them with friends and family. I do have, friends that do that for me and my peers, and we love you for it. So thank you. You know who you are. Hopefully everybody has someone like that in their life, or maybe find a way to make connections and make friends.
Fingers crossed. Claws crossed.
Indeed. And I'll hit you up when the pot runs empty and see if you have leads too for us.
Well, thanks for having us this week.
Yeah. North Coast Journal, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you, Jen, especially hanging in there the whole time. Without that, you did wonderful. We love you. So appreciate you, and have a great Thanksgiving holiday. We will see you again next week, Jen.
Happy Thanksgiving, Jay.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too. North Coast Journal is available on newsstands now. Pick one up. Stay informed. Also available online anytime, 24/7. Again, stay safe. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Thank you for listening, and we'll connect with you again next week. Until then, take care.